Okay, Andrew.
Good morning. Welcome to our webinar, the Charter Group webinar supported by Fiber CRM and Mercia, two of the affinity partners that we have at Charter Group. Thank you for taking the time out of your diary this week to join us and to hear about the future trends in client onboarding and data enrichment. It's my pleasure as Andrew Williamson, one of the directors at Charter Group, to welcome you to this webinar. For those of you who don't know Charter Group, we've got Charter Group members on here, but I'm delighted that we've been able to open up this webinar to friends of Mercia and friends of Fiber CRM. Charter Group are an alliance of accountancy practices around the UK that come together to share best practice, knowledge, share ideas, have access to opportunities to learn from one another and from within Charter Group. So there's training courses on personal development for managers, for partners, sales training, and also access to Abacus International to give firms that need access to international reach to support their clients. Charter Group can facilitate that. One of the things that Charter Group members are very keen on is making sure they're applying technology well and to good effect within their practice, and also making sure they're compliant with the various challenges that we all face with keeping up to date with the onboarding, AML checks, and the various other administrative matters that we have to deal with taking on clients and looking after them. And I'm delighted today that I'm joined by Simon Leap from Fiber and Andy Holton from Mercia and Rosie as well. Thank you all for joining us. Andy and Simon will be taking you through this webinar. So Simon, if I can hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. And it's a joy to be part of the Charter Group Alliance as an affinity partner. So I've attended our first event with you, and it was a family occasion. It was really, really insightful. So today we're going to go through AI, automation, and how that can help onboarding. We'll be doing live demonstrations of that too. So we hope to make it a thrilling half an hour to 40 minutes or so. There will be time at the end for any questions. So if you have a question that you'd like answered, then please type it into the chat. Rosie, who is head of our customer success, will be monitoring those questions and we'll be asking them at the end. If there's too many questions, then we will send those questions to you post the event. So Andy, we've run a similar webinar before, and we had nearly 300, or just over 300 people attending. We got about 50 attending today in holiday season. So why do you think there is so much interest in onboarding and anti-money laundering?
I think it's continues to be a problem. We've an anniversary passed earlier this year that has largely gone unmarked, and that's the 20th anniversary of the money laundering regulations pretty much in their current form. But we still see people struggling to deal with the requirements properly. A lot of people see it as a paper chase. It's getting that copy passport, getting that copy utility bill, and tick the box and then forget about it. And unfortunately, there's a lot more to it than that. It is an anti-money laundering regime, so you need to have information about the client. You need to demonstrate that you understand the client, because any reports you make are going to be about money laundering. And people then struggle, or firms often struggle to document that clearly. It can be scattered all over the place, hard to find, and therefore hard to keep up to date.
So where do you find firms do it well?
Well, I don't think any firms sort of set out to do it wrong. They've all got the good, best intentions, but we're busy. Lots of firms struggle to recruit. So always under pressure to get things done. So, you know, the best intentions, the phone rings at the wrong time, something gets missed. And then particularly if documents are filed in different systems, so different aspects of the due diligence through different places, it's very hard to spot if something's been missed. Ongoing monitoring is then difficult because you may need to be looking across different systems. So again, things get missed. And if you look at the Institute sort of annual feedback on their compliance reviews, and Mercia see the same, it's quite common to see things missed. It's quite common to see little or no evidence of ongoing monitoring. So if you've got a system where essentially everything is filed in one place, it's very easy to see at the time if anything is missed. And then from an ongoing monitoring perspective, again, you're reviewing information that is all in one place. And then if anything was missed first time round, there's much greater chance that the ongoing monitoring will fill any gaps and continue to keep things up to date.
And that's what we see as well. When we talk to firms, they've got data all over the place in spreadsheets, in Word documents, in paper-based files. You know, there's quite a lot of technology on the market, and it's confusing. You know, which technology should you be using, and does each piece of technology work, you know, across all the other applications you might be using? So we hear this sort of like single point of truth. You know, a lot of firms want that sort of visibility. So very much concurs with what you've just been saying, Andy. So the agenda today, we're going to look at some future trends, but it's actually happening now. So I'm going to give you a demonstration now of sort of AI and automation and how that can help enrich the whole journey. And I'm going to do that sort of for lead enrichment, but AI can also be used during the onboarding process as well. So after we've done that, we're going to highlight all the onboarding steps and look at what tools are available to streamline the process. We look at those sort of challenges, and Andy and I are going to sort of discuss some of those challenges. And then we're going to look at some of the latest technologies that are available. So this webinar today is run by Andy from Mercia Group and myself. And we're going to show you some technology where we've done some sort of joined up activity to help make your lives easier as accountants. So let's get started. I'm going to do a live demonstration, so I will be using my phone, and I'm going to try and broadcast my phone. But just to summarize what the steps are for a typical onboarding process. An inquiry comes in, there's a pipeline opportunity, you want to produce a proposal, you want to then gather more information about the client, either from Companies House or client information requests, getting their ID documents so you can do your KYC or risk assessment, professional clearance, produce engagement letter, and push that information into your practice management system. So that's typically the flow of onboarding, and ongoing monitoring is also part of that. But let's take a look at the very first stage, which is really a new inquiry. So typically, how do we enrich data? So you may get a web inquiry coming in from your website, or a partner's gone to a networking event and they've seen a name badge like the one you're seeing on the screen, and there's not very much information. Wouldn't it be great if we had a lot more information about that individual? Well, AI and automation can help. So I'm going to just share my screen. And Andy, do you have a LinkedIn profile?
I do, yes.
I'm gonna demonstrate looking for your details. So all I'm going to put into my system is the name and the company you work for. So I'm sharing my screen live. Now I've got an icon on my phone, which I could give out to all the partners in the firm as the top left saying new lead. So I click on it and it's going to load my form that I'm going to fill in Andy's details. So in this case, it's Andy Bolton, and this is Mercia Group. Now, if I've got your mobile number, great. If I've got your email, great. But I'm going to use AI to find that information on the web. So I may be just at the event and all I've got is your name badge. I could put in some notes. Maybe I've been to a meeting, I've just met you at an event. I could dictate the notes into my phone, which I'm doing now because I've turned on the recording on my phone. I can also decide to add you to some marketing lists as well. So if the marketing department, I want them to go to send an introductory email. I want them to receive the tax briefing notes. But bear in mind that I haven't got your email address yet. And I want it to send me an email when it's processed all the information. So in a moment, my email is sitting here. I've got an empty inbox. I'm going to jump into the CRM system now and just show you some of the information that we're going to be looking to gather. So, but just before I do that, if I just have a look at the sort of information we want to gather. So I'm going to use ChatGPT to give me a 200-word summary about Mercia Group. I'm going to use a tool called Perplexity AI to do an adverse media check on Andy. I'm going to go onto Companies House, find information about Mercia Group. I'm going to go onto LinkedIn and find his profile, a photo of him. And I'm also going to check in the CRM to see whether Andy already exists, because there could be thousands of clients in the system. There could be, tens of partners, and somebody else might already know Andy. So I don't want sort of any conflicts going on. So I'm going to show you some of this technology. But if I just jump into the CRM. So in the background, I've got all my leads. If I refresh my screen, you should see Andy at the top because that's an inquiry that's come in. And in a few minutes' time, it's going to have found Andy's email address, his phone number. If I click on his details, it's going to give me information about Andy, maybe from ChatGPT, maybe adverse media content, and that's going to start enriching the data. So if I just show you what I did earlier, this is actually Steve in our office. And all I did was I put in Steve Jenkin and the organization, and it's found his job title, it's found his email address. ChatGPT has written a 200-word summary about Steve. It then went onto his LinkedIn profile and found his photo and some of his LinkedIn bio. So if I was at a networking event, this information would be really useful so I can start a conversation with Steve, either about the business or about his interests. But it's really useful information. I've got insights. It's actually found a potential conflict. So whilst it's a lead that's come into the firm, it's also a contact in our database that is assigned to a partner called Christina, and she's last talked to Steve earlier this month. So that's useful information. We've got adverse media. So it's also gone on and used Perplexity AI to conduct an adverse media check. So here there's no arrests, there's no sanctions, and he's not a PEP. And we've got also sources. Andy, do you think this is something that would be useful for other firms?
Yes, absolutely. Something we've included in our documentation, and the Institute likewise also recommends, is doing adverse media checks. So they could just be simple Google searches, or you can do Google string searches and be a bit more sophisticated, but clearly using AI is going a step further, and it's actually collating the information for you and also giving you the sources so you can see where ChatGPT has got that information. So yes, very useful.
Great. So and as Andy says, you can just if I just get what we did here, this is what I told Perplexity, just to say you're an accountant, you're doing some research, adverse media, any arrests. So if I just copy that, I'll go to Perplexity AI. This is a free AI tool. You could just use this without a CRM system. You could just come here and paste in your statement, and then it's going to wait for you to put in a person's details. So I'm going to put Andy Holton, and then it's immediately sourced information about Andy and his role. So what we did in the CRM is run that automatically. So when a lead is added to the system, it immediately does an adverse media check. So it's really saving a lot of time you going off to Google and doing those sorts of searches. The other thing it does as well is it will go off to, for example, Companies House. It found the SIC code. It has found a link to their, sorry, get rid of that. It found a link to their latest filed accounts. And we can also see their registered office details, their and so on. So all I did was put Steve Jenkin, Fiber CRM, and submit that, and all this rich information has come to life in our CRM system. And that's going to be useful when we start onboarding Steve later on. Okay. So these tools are useful. It'd be quite. We could run a poll to ask the audience what they think of AI and where they see this being useful or not useful. So, Rosie, could you put a poll up on the screen, and we'll ask the audience whether AI is something that is going to be a benefit to the firm. So you should see an option. Where do you see AI helping you within the next 12 months? So, if there's no benefit, then we need, there's a good research. But if you're seeing it from a lead perspective, or just from cleaning data, we had, for example, one firm, they got 7,000 clients without a registered office address, without an SIC code. AI can, within a few seconds, populate that data for you. Okay. So we got results up? So Rosie, could you put some results up?
Hold on 1 second.
Thank you. So I think, we get a lot of people coming to webinars when we're talking about AI and automation. It's quite a topical point at the moment. So we've got a varied mix, but there's 0 people saying no benefit. So clearly there is benefit. And I think it's generally, from the look of the results, 33%, 42, 42, 25, AI automation is important across the board. So thank you for that result. Okay, so that's inquiry handling. In terms of another area we see is in fee proposals. So there are proposal tools out on the market, and what we see is the engagement letter going out at exactly the same time as the proposal going out. Andy, what are your thoughts on that approach, as before actually doing all the AML check and making sure they're going to become a client?
I can understand why firms like that approach, because if you do the engagement letter after you've completed all the AML checks and the fee proposal at that stage, which strictly speaking, that's how the regulations suggest you should do it, you can then have the situation that you've invested time on doing the client due diligence, and the client looks at your fees and says, no, thank you. And you've wasted a lot of time. So I quite understand agreeing the fees, getting the engagement letter in place before you've completed all the client due diligence process. What you must be very careful of is the regulations are quite specific. You cannot do any substantive work until you've completed all the client due diligence. So by all means, you can send out the fee proposal with the engagement letter. And what a number of firms that we deal with do is they set up a temporary code on their system that creates the client, but does not allow time to be charged to it, which means that billable work can't be undertaken. Then once the client due diligence is completed, that code is then changed to a chargeable code. So you need procedures like that to ensure that you don't start any work until you've completed the client due diligence. So yes, you can send the engagement letter with the fee proposal before this, but just be very careful that you don't start doing work before you've completed your AML checks, because it's breaching the regulations. That's potentially fines and penalties if it's picked up.
Right, and I think people do it a lot of the time before, because it's just a convenient way through a proposal system to get the engagement letter out. But most firms that we work with, particularly with fibre, is that they'll produce it at the end when everything has been done and they are actually going to be engaging with that client. So we would recommend doing it later, but there are tools out there that you can do it at the same time. So if we actually look at the different steps of an onboarding process and how long each step takes, what we're finding is typically it's 190 to 200 sort of minutes spent onboarding a client when you're using lots of different systems. You know, your proposal generation, you're getting information from Companies House, you're gathering information from the actual client themselves so you can do the ID check, doing your KYC and professional clearance, and then producing engagement letter. All of that takes time. So typically with an onboarding solution, an onboarding software solution where everything is in one place, all those elements, or the time spent in each of those elements, is significantly reduced. And we've looked at across a lot of our customers, and typically it's a 79–80% faster result in terms of time spent. So that equates, like if you're taking on 250 clients a year, you could effectively take on over 1,100 clients in exactly the same amount of time. So significant scalability using onboarding software. So if we have a look at the engagement letter generation and the challenges around that and why it takes so long, typically what we find is that engagement letters are in multiple Word documents. Within each Word document, there's multiple paragraphs of text that is variable, maybe highlighted yellow, whether it's needed or not needed. And there's a huge number of engagement letters, and Mercia have quite a few. Andy, could you give a bit of an idea of the size and scale of the number of engagement letters that Mercia provide?
It must be 30 or so, because it's not just the different service lines, it's then the different entities. So charity, company, LLP, they're all audit. Academies, they're variations on audit, but with all those different options, yes, it's a large number.
So with all the different variants, how many engagement letter templates do you actually provide?
Off the top, it must be 40 or 50 in total.
I think it's 40 or 50 different types, but when you look at the different entities, I think there's over 150 different engagement letters that are provided by Mercia. And you know, you want a way to get that information quickly into an engagement letter. So Rosie, could we just run another poll on? I'd like to look at how long it takes you as a firm to produce an engagement letter. So you should see a number of options. If it's less than 5 minutes, if it's less than 10 minutes, less than 20, less than 40, more than 40. You know, some firms I've talked to says it takes hours, you know, to pull the different Word documents together. You know, so I'm interested to get a feel for how long it takes. Because if we multiply that by the number of clients you take on a year, it's a lot of time potentially. So we'll wait a few seconds for everybody to complete that. But Rosie, when you're ready, if you could sort of pop up the results. Great. Okay, so we've got 25% more than 40 minutes, and then the rest less than 20 minutes. So there's 25% less than 5 minutes. So there's still a lot to do there. Thank you for that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at how Fiber helps you produce an engagement letter. So for this demonstration, what I'm going to do is we've taken all of Mercia's templates, we've taken all of those variable paragraphs of text, and we've put them into effectively a database. So when you are in a CRM system and you're creating a sales opportunity for maybe accounts production, audit work, payroll, you push a button and it's going to produce the engagement letter, and it's going to present you with a list of all those different variable paragraphs of text to pick from. So you just a point and click option to create the engagement letter. So nobody's messing about with multiple Word documents. So if we just click on the link, it's going to load the sales opportunity. So this sales opportunity is with Pickwick Limited, and I'm going to send it to Anna, my favorite person, and I'm going to choose 3 different service lines. So one is audit work. So these might come from your practice management system. I'm going to tax and payroll. Okay, and save. So I've created a sales opportunity for those 3 items. I now want to produce an engagement letter. I might produce a proposal and everything else, but this is focused on engagement letter. So I'm going to go to the action menu and create engagement letter. And at this point, I can choose a covering letter. So you might have different terms of business. You can have a different brand. So if you run multiple brands, maybe a wealth management division has a slightly different logo. But when I go next, it's then going to present me with all the variables, the variable paragraphs of text that we want to include or exclude to do with that particular service line. The other thing it does as well is it identifies that they're a limited company. So it grabs the right Mercia template for that particular service line or those service lines. So when you choose your options, you create the engagement letter, and that is now going to create the engagement letter. So I can edit it before it goes out to the client if I wanted to. So I can click on edit and have a look at the wording of it and go in and make some edits. Maybe there are some things that need to be changed at that point in time. So I have the ability to make those edits. But this engagement letter has got all those services that I've picked from my sales opportunity. And I can go through a whole approval process. In this case, I'm just going to partner approve it. And now I can send that to the client for electronic signing. So it's taken me seconds to send an engagement letter to the client. And if I just send that now, I'm going to choose who I want to send it to. Actually, I only want Anna to sign it, but I could have other people signing it. If they're a trust, for example, I might want multiple people signing it. But that engagement letter is now going to the client, Anna. In this case, this is Anna's inbox. And in a moment, she's going to receive the engagement letter to sign, and there it is. So she clicks on it and clicks on the link. Thank you for selecting us. Please click on this link to sign the engagement letter. So at the bottom of the page, Anna can then electronically sign it, and job done. So that's saving a huge amount of time. And if you think about the time it takes you now to how long that took and how many you do a year, you can start seeing the savings in terms of using an onboarding solution like Fiber. So that's the fee proposal and the engagement letter. In terms of client take on, this is another area where we find people taking time, and what they're doing is sometimes doing it in a non-GDPR compliant way. So if we have a look at the different ways of collecting data today, what we find is there's, first of all, email. We're seeing a lot of accountants now requesting information, ID information via email, and it's not secure. So we've seen situations where the accountant has requested somebody's passport information, the client has emailed it to them, and it's sat in their sent items for months because they haven't got a good policy in cleaning up their sent items, and only to be hacked by a virus that comes in, and some of that sensitive information is lost. So email is not a great way to gather information, and it's not an easy way to extract the information as well, because you've still got to type that in somewhere into your back office systems. Document management is another way to gather information, and whilst it's secure because you can provide a portal for somebody to upload a Word document or a PDF file, etc., it's not easy to extract it. You've still got somebody to download the document and then to key that information into some other system. So whether it's a practice management system or the AML system, it's not ideal. You can use onboarding forms, and Fiber CRM is just one of those, but there are many onboarding forms that are secure. So Jotform, Microsoft Forms, Typeform are just a few of those types of forms. And that's a great way to gather information from a client. It's also easy to extract as well, because you can start connecting Microsoft Forms, for example, to your to a spreadsheet or to a CRM system. Obviously, Fiber CRM, we sort of got the integrations to all your other back office systems. So there are some level of technical skills required to use tools like Microsoft Forms, Typeform, Jotform, and Fiber to some extent as well. But those are typically the systems that we see. Andy, do you have any view on what you're seeing in the market?
We see quite a mixture. Some firms still, particularly it's smaller firms that see all their clients face to face. It's still a very paper-based manual process. We do see firms having passports emailed in, or copies of passports emailed in, and then actually that's not sufficient for the regulations. You do need to have seen the original. So, and that's the same whether that document comes via a portal or via email. So gathering information electronically is obviously a lot better, particularly if you then combine that with an electronic ID check. You do need to be careful with electronic ID checks, because essentially ensuring you're running the check on the right person. So it does depend on the risk. So sometimes you may still need a copy passport, something like that, so that you know who you're looking at. Although again, as we saw earlier, ChatGPT can come up with somebody's profile and their picture. So risk comes into it. You may be perfectly satisfied with what you've got from your online searches and the onboarding forms. Sometimes you may need to get copy documents as well.
Right. Thank you for that. And yeah, that's what we see. We see people using AML tools as well, and using facial recognition these days. You can build those into the process as well to make it easier to do your ID checks. So gathering the information, I would recommend using an online form process rather than a document portal or email. In terms of KYC, risk, and AML, now managing that process. Now, Mercia So Andy, what sort of forms? I've got one in the background. That's a Mercy form. Do you want to just talk about that?
Well, we've just produced essentially there's 3 stages to client due diligence. So there's gathering information about the client. So typically we call that KYC. Then there's a risk assessment, the risk of that client being involved in money laundering, terrorist financing, etc. And then based on the risk assessment, you do some verification of the information. So that would normally include ID, but is not limited to ID. If you look at the CCAB guidance, it talks about how do you know that the information the client has told you is true. And that's the verification stage. So it's the forms we provide are geared up for it being a very procedural paper-based process, but it doesn't need to be. It's about how you then manage that information in a system. So if you've got a system prompting you to do those things, it's going to be much more streamlined and efficient.
And your AML risk forms, they're Word documents, aren't they, typically? So
they're Word documents, yes.
Yeah. So having them online and storing them in a central place within the KYC process helps bring everything together in one place to give that single point of truth effectively.
That's right. And it does ensure the forms are up to date as well. What a number of firms do they will create a pack on their server of the forms that they use. And we see new clients being taken on with forms that we produced back in the noughties. And clearly things have moved on since then. So that's another issue that goes away if you're using the online forms.
That's a good point. And that is something that Fibre has built in with Mercia. All the risk forms and all the engagement letters as well are self-maintained. So as Mercia change an engagement letter, then that change is also put into your Fibre CRM solution alongside the risk forms as well, if you so wish. Right. The other thing as well is getting a view of where are we at with the onboarding process. We find because information is stored in multiple systems, Word documents over here for risk, Word documents over there for engagement letters, where are we at with each client? So what you're seeing on the screen at the moment is a bit of like a traffic light indicator, looking at all the clients you're currently onboarding and what the KYC status is, whether it's been referred to the MLRO, that sort of thing, what risk forms have been completed, what client information requests have been sent or not returned yet, who's passed anti-money laundering, have we sent professional clearance out, has the engagement letter gone out, have we filled in all the fields necessary for practice management so that we can just push a button and push that data into practice management. So it gives partners, for example, a high level view of their clients and really where are we at with the process. And you can get a more granular view of that as well. So if you could imagine a dashboard, if I'm an administrator and I need to know, well, which clients are we still waiting for an engagement letter to be signed? What risk forms haven't been completed? What data are we still waiting for so we can do ID checks? If you could have put all that on one screen, then that starts giving you visibility of and control that single point of truth. And in this example, this is like a typical dashboard for an administrator to actually see all of that information and being able to drill down into any one record and complete that bit of information or process something or just remind the client to do something. So if we're saving sort of 42 minutes of time spent onboarding, I would like to get one more poll before we push the data sort of into practice management. One more poll. If you could think about all the tools that you use today, how many are there? How many do you use? So yes, if you're using Word for engagement letters and you're using Word for risk forms, then that's two systems. But if you could just have a look at the question on the screen and just have a think about your marketing lists, have a think about all the different systems you use. It'll be interesting because ideally there should only be a few. You know, you might want an onboarding system linked to your smart search or credit safe AML platform, you know, 2 systems, you know, and which is all your CRM system as well. So if you could think about that, it'll be interesting to get a view from everybody. Okay, Rosie, how are we doing?
Give everyone a couple more seconds.
Okay, so yeah, so 75% is 3 to 4 systems, and then the rest are just over 6+ systems. So, you know, it's a lot of different systems that they don't work, they can't work together. And, you know, that's where the real challenge is for onboarding clients. Thank you for that, everybody. Okay, well, I think we are done. I think we're 40 minutes in, and we've got 15-20 minutes for any questions. So, Rosie, are there any questions that have come about?
Yes, there is. We've got one about engagement letters. So what sectors do you have engagement letter templates for? Do you have them for charities, registered social landlords and credit unions?
I think that's one for Andy.
We have charities and registered social landlords. We don't have credit unions.
So you could, if you've got the engagement letter already for credit unions, then we could bring that data into Fiber and sit alongside Mercia. So you could have a mix of the two. So, you know, some firms prefer to have their own engagement letter templates. They may have taken Mercia's content and adapted it, and they want that to be used. And that's fine, you can do that. The only issue with that is you've got to maintain it yourself. But the system can run both of those.
Fantastic. One about AI. How can AI help with ongoing monitoring?
Yeah, so you can connect to things like Companies House using AI. So, for example, it can identify your clients, businesses maybe, and have a look at if there's any directors or officers that have started involvement with that firm since the last KYC check, or have now no longer involved in that firm, and keep that up to date. So as you do your annual KYC reviews, it's already sort of providing information, surfacing information for you, as well as potentially running those adverse media checks. As sort of one example. If anybody has any follow-up questions to what I've just said as well, please quickly post it into the chat, and I'll try and answer it as well. So, Rosie, is there any more questions?
Yeah, one on collecting new data as well. Use of NFC and business card scanning to collect new contact data. Are these viable options?
For sure, yeah. I've got a business card scanning app on my phone. It's an OCR reader, so just scan it, and that can come in as a lead, and then you could use AI and automation to enrich that information, which I demonstrated earlier. So, you know, ChatGPT summary and a Plexity AI adverse media check, and go off to Companies House and find more information, enrich that lead, for sure.
Fantastic. Another question, great presentation, thank you. Can you share any future plans for integrating ChatGPT and other tools with Fiber, and what's exciting you about this technology in our sector?
So I've seen a lot of talk in the sector about ChatGPT, and I've never seen very many practical examples of its use, other than what I've just demonstrated, where if I'm go to a networking event and I just see somebody's name badge, like the charter group one, and I email that into the CRM, and 2 minutes later, it sent me a ChatGPT 200-word summary on the business, what they specialize in, who their current accountants are, what their revenue is. I'm in a much stronger position to have a conversation with that individual at that networking event and talk to them about, it might be that they're actually not in my market space. We specialize in property. They're not a property company, so I'm not really going to talk to them. So I think ChatGPT is certainly helping in that respect. I don't think ChatGPT is the best tool for writing content. I think Claude AI is much better at writing content. And again, that's another free AI tool, just like it's a generative text engine. But enriching your existing data, I think, is also another one. Some firms have got thousands of clients, and you could just get ChatGPT or Claude AI or Perplexity to write a summary on each one and put that into the CRM. So that's where I see the future. I do think there'll be new ideas coming out, and we will be sharing those with our existing customers and running other public webinars like this one.
Fantastic. I've got one just about the new Lead app. Is that available in the App Store, so the one you were using earlier for the form?
The form I used on my phone is a web form, part of our Fiber CRM solution. So it's just an HTML form, but the submit button pushes it into a CRM system, Fiber CRM. But we could provide a form like that, just an HTML form if somebody wanted it, without it pushing it into a CRM. It could push it in, for example, to a Google spreadsheet or another CRM system. It doesn't have to be Fiber CRM, but it's quite a good demonstration of a CRM system, because that form pushed that person into different marketing lists in Campaign Monitor or MailChimp or HubSpot. The notes that I dictated into it are stored against the lead record. By having a CRM system, you've got a centralized place for it all. Thanks, Rosie. Any more questions? Still plenty of time.
That's all the questions. I was a little bit eagle-eyed earlier when you were on your Gmail and saw that the new lead had been created. So it might be worth just demonstrating
Oh, great. Okay,
what you created.
Yeah, so earlier, there's the lead. So it did create Andy. It sometimes takes a few minutes to do it. There's the notes. So this is effectively on my phone as well. I could have been at that networking event. If I just share my screen, I'll show you the same thing. And it'll come up. There we go. So inbox. So there's a lead that's come in. So I'm at the networking event. I filled in Andy Holton from Mercia Group, and there's a 200-word summary on my phone, and there's company's house information. So I can just click on the link to see his last filed accounts. I can see his email. It's found his email address. There's a lovely photo of Andy. And there's no conflicts in the CRM as well. So that information is given to me on my phone, and I can click on Andy and it can take me into the CRM while I'm there. So I might want to even edit the details while I'm at the event. But it gives me the same sort of information all from my phone. Thank you, Rosie, for that. So yeah, and of course, back in the CRM as well, you'll see that Andy's details are now enriched, and there's his mobile phone number, or his phone number and details. And there's a ChatGPT summary. Did it do an adverse media check on you, Andy? Have you been arrested?
No.
This is dangerous.
There we go. No arrests. No convictions, no sanctions, and no perhaps. Phew. Great. Okay, well, it's now 10 to. We've been 50 minutes. Thank you for attending today.
Yeah.
Any last words, Andrew?
Yes, I'd love to. I thought that was fantastic. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Andy. I thought the use of AI to scrape that information and how quickly that happened. And Rosie, thank you for being so eagle-eyed, because then actually seeing how that's populated everything was absolutely fantastic. That is one of the best uses of those various different bits of AI that I've seen to really bring it into a practical application for firms. I thought that was superb. I was also challenged. You think about the data collection and how we gather that information, and I think many firms are stuck in the 90s that we use Word documents to complete all of these things, and then email use of email out to or to transfer this data and data collection. And we really are missing a trick, because if you organize that data in something like a CRM system, and then you're using AI to keep that up to date, cleanse it, and then you can use that data to actually draw some understanding about what's going on in the business. So I thought that was really, really interesting. And Andy, you said something that really struck a chord with me. Unless you are using a system like this centralized to make sure it's up to date and getting this, it is very easy for some of these processes and systems. You've got forms in place, usually a combination of Excel and Word, and you've created these 5 or 6 years ago and you haven't kept them up to date. So there are several things there that really struck a chord. So Rosie, thank you for keeping everything moving behind the scenes. Andy, thank you for all the insight from Mercia. Simon, as always, thank you very much. It's a real joy. Thank you. I'm really glad we were able to expand this to firms that aren't necessarily a member of Charter Group. If you'd like to know more about Charter Group, have a look on our website and reach out to me, and I'll happily explain more about what we do. Enjoy your Friday, everybody. So thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming.